How about the perception of calm, which, as you know, nowadays, if you just virtue signal, it's better than reality, right? So we've got a perceived calm, which maybe is better than real calm these days. So the thing about I wrote about all this in my newsletter, but it's people have been asking me, like, please come back, please start writing again. I took a 3-year break, as you know, I wrote a book, all these things. But ebtucker.com is the way people would see this. I just wrote about what's happening in the banking system, and people need to understand that a lot of my content's free, because when I was coming along, it was very difficult to learn. And as you know, you've been on a journey as well, that you've got to have somebody saying to you, this is what's going on, and it's free of marketing, and it's just, this is what's happening, and let's learn together. That's the deal. So you're exactly right that what's happening is things are breaking. And last year we said if the Fed raises rates this way, they're going to do it till something breaks, and that's going to keep going. That's not done yet. But if you notice, the dirty little secret, which I share this in the most recent newsletter, is that they're raising and breaking things on one side of the ledger, and then they're bailing people out on the other side of the ledger. So it's really the ultimate exercise in being two-faced. And why wouldn't they do this? Because the game plan is that ramp these rates up, pull the dollar strength back in, firm up your billy club so that you can use it around the world. But at the same time, if anything cracks over here, make sure the right people are taken care of, because you don't want to have too much instability at home. Mom and pop might start getting worried, if they actually couldn't get their money out of the bank. There's 17.5 trillion roughly of deposits at banks. Think about that. There's a lot less than 17.5 trillion there. And as long as you don't think there's a problem, then there's not a problem. So that's what's going on. I don't really think banks are the biggest issue here. I mean, banks are about what they've always been. They're kind of like money utilities. Think of it like your local power company. That's really what a bank is. And I don't mind owning some bank stock. I mean, I think you got to be patient to buy bank stock. I mean, in the newsletter, we manage a portfolio for a trust, and you'll see the stocks that I buy, right? So for the trust, and these are boring stocks. They're not like overnight success stories. I mean, we're buying things like, we will buy a bank at some point because it's a really good business. I mean, you essentially take a few pennies in the door and then loan out a few dollars, and it's I don't know if anything really that's as good as that. And you have government support, and if anything goes wrong, then you just taxpayer takes care of you. It's kind of like, let's not overthink this. I mean, that's a pretty good business. The issue is that a lot of these people overexpose themselves to dangerous credit that became less valuable as the Fed did this radical policy move. And so, and I don't think people need to really worry about that so much, because it's a bit nuanced. It's a bit complicated. The big picture is you can't blow up a $300 trillion debt balloon and then shrink it down more than about 10%, before everything starts rattling and the wheels fall off the car. And that's what's happening. So what do you do in the meantime? I mean, stay out of the hurricane, man. That's the deal. If you're low debt or fixed rate debt and stable income, and you don't spend, excessively more than you make, you should be sleeping all right. I mean, there's a lot of other campers that are going to get eaten by the bear before the bear gets to you. And that's the name of the game. I love when people say the US dollar is going to fail, and I'll say, look, man, I mean, it's, probably not going to fail. I mean, are there problems? And yeah. I mean, of course, like so what's going to happen here? I mean, it's not going to, you don't wake up one day and the whole system is stopped, and then you're using, 6 pieces of Chinese paper currency that you got on a field trip to pay for groceries. I mean, forget about it. This is like dreaming. I mean, this is not what's going to happen. We're in a position of change, okay? And that change is the world is reorganizing, okay? So you've been in this scenario for a long time where the U.S. was like the king of the playground, and the U.S. is still very powerful. It's going to remain very powerful. The world is kind of like shifting into zones per se, and so there's some of the influence that is realigning itself, and so everybody's going to battle stations over that, and the U.S. is still going to maintain a lot of control. And I think that people need to be realistic about how this works. think back to the COVID crisis emergency situation that we were in for some time. When did that stop? Look at each country. In Canada, it stopped when the truckers blocked all the bridges and things got way out of hand. And you know what happened? Like the next week or whatever, they're like, okay, turns out we will let you go without a mask outdoors or whatever the rule was. Okay. And everything got kind of dialed back, right? In China, it went longer until there was the issues at Foxconn. There were some fires in some neighborhoods where the rescue people couldn't get there, and people like really kind of lost it. They really lost, and they got really upset, and then they started dialing all these things back. My point here is nothing to do with COVID. I don't want to touch that. My point is that the pain will go, the shaking and rattling will go until something rattles so hard that mom and pop are ready to pick up sticks, and look for a congressman. Okay, so we're a long way from that. I mean, I was in Texas this week. I was talking to some Flexjet pilots, like the private jet pilots, and they were telling me that they just come out of Palm Beach and there were 415 landings in the Palm Beach airspace the day before, and it was like too much for the air traffic control to handle. And I don't know if you've ever flown in private aviation, but man, you're just like torching jet fuel. You got like way more equipment than's necessary, and I mean it's like excessive. And think about it, man. They can't even fit all the planes into the airspace. I mean, it's booming out there. You can't get a reservation anywhere. It's crazy. You can't find a plumber to install, something at your house. And all that stuff, it doesn't matter. The little details that don't matter. What matters is that how much fuse is left to burn before something really starts shaking. There's a bit more. And so while that fuse is burning, seek cover. I mean, like, get your house in order. That's the deal. You don't need to buy 7 years of dried food or something. I mean, you just have to say, are there any vulnerability points in the next, X number of months that I need to should I just button these up today so that I can sleep and keep my blood pressure in check over the next few months? There's a lot of problems in anything that benefited from ultra cheap money. Okay, so like, what would that be? Well, that would be, I have a friend that sold an apartment, for example. The people that bought the apartment was a pension fund, which has access to ultra cheap money, and they bought the thing for like a 3% return, piled debt on the thing. So now let's say that's a 5-year loan, 7-year loan. Okay, all right. Whenever that comes due, they got to be in the market to roll that loan over. The loan's going to be, probably instead of 2%, it's going to probably be 7%. And the value that will be loaned against is going to be lower. Okay. Believe me, people, this is not over your head. It's ultra simple. Okay. And so what that means is you got to raise the rents. And then you say, wait a minute, people can't pay much more rent. Okay. Because nobody's really making that much more money. You get like a 6% raise at your job. It's not really helping. So that means the value of the apartment has to come down a little bit. And if the value comes down a little bit, well, they only put 10% down, so it can't come down more than 10%. And then they don't really have that much more money to put in because they got to get it from the pensioners. You see how this goes? So what do you do there? Well, you extend the loan. So you extend and pretend. That's what they used to call it. So you extend the loan a little bit. You do that a few times. Well, that hurts the value of the building next door. Now you have your comps are back. You see how this goes? So the ultimate solution for this is to turn around and start pumping this debt bubble up again. That's what's going to happen. Okay. So until that time, you got to stay out of the crossfire. That's what you got to do. And it's not that hard. We talk about it in my newsletter all the time. It's like, it's not that hard to do. You don't have to do crazy things. You don't have to make some huge gamble on market correction. And then I get these crazy emails. I can't answer emails. I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't respond to these. But I read these emails and I just think, are you even reading the newsletter? They'll say, should I buy the 3 times leveraged daily short fund or something? And I'm thinking, I mean, how is that even a question? Like, why would you even do that? We just got done recommending the #1 provider of frozen French fries for the food service industry in America. It is the coolest stock I've ever recommended. It's amazing. You will not believe like the videos of how they harvest these potatoes, cut them, fry them, and then I walk around with my kids on the weekend. I'm like, look at these people, French fries. That nobody in America is cutting out French fries. All right, like people don't really want to walk much in America. You notice that? They'd rather they'll walk before they'll cut French fries. You see what I mean? It's like it's an American staple. And that's the kind of stocks you want to own, because that's not going to get cut out of someone's budget. And if you got to raise the price of French fries 10%, no problem. It's going up. I'd say it's better than oil. I mean, I think people are likely to not drive somewhere before they're going to cut out their basket of French fries. So, I mean, anyway, we talk about this stuff all the time. And then I get these messages from people, should they gamble? And I'm just like, there's no reason to gamble this way. I mean, like, in your investing, you're split minded, right? Like you have like a responsible person, which I call the trustee, and then you have a gambler that's kind of crazy. And these are real parts of your personality, but like the instinct to gamble is still alive. Okay, that's my point. When this market's ready to turn around, people are panicked. You can see the whites of their eyes, right? That's not happened yet, and that means that the Fed can keep on. They don't really need to go higher. It's just that they can keep up the pressure. Like 4.5, 4.75, this is a really high rate when you have a $300 trillion debt bubble. Okay, that's like a really high rate. I mean, remember, it was zero. So, I mean, like zero is a really low number. I mean, if your business can make zero profit, you can borrow. Okay, that's a really low bar, man. That means that, any business works. Okay, but that's done. Okay, and now you're up here at 4.5, which is still less than inflation. That's what's amazing. I mean, if your business can even keep up with inflation, you can afford to borrow. But some of these businesses are so terrible they can't even keep up with inflation. So it's a total mess. But what do? You got to think about self-preservation, not like gambling to make profits. You want to survive. This is musical chairs. All you want is a chair. It doesn't really matter if you get the red chair or the blue chair or whatever. Just want a chair, man. That's what you want. And I think when people start thinking that way, they have a lot more fun. They get a lot better sleep. They enjoy their life more. They're more pleasant to be around. And paradoxically, they end up making more money. You do end up making more money because you're thinking straight. You're not thinking ideologically. Yes, that's true. And there are sectors where you can do that. I mean, there's another example that we're talking about in the newsletter is certain parts of the energy business. I'm not talking about like Exxon, Chevron, and all this stuff. Those are great companies, but I'm talking about there's things in America like we haven't built a refinery in the 70s, and we're not going to build any more refineries because they're ugly and they smell weird and nobody wants them around, and nobody really understands that you can't get the diesel for the trucks and the trains and all these things without the refinery. So, I mean, there's stuff like that these things make money. They have pricing power. It's fantastic. We talk about that in the newsletter. We talk about defense. I mean, the defense budget just is the biggest that it's ever been. Like it or not, defense is a big, the war machine roars along regardless of what happens, to dollar supremacy. But I know what you really want to talk about is the good stuff. I've got a Engelhard bar here, that I keep around as a paperweight, mostly because nobody's ever held silver. And what's amazing? Nobody will steal this because they don't know what it is, But I mean, of course, the good stuff is always fun to own. And the gold business is not. This is a 50 peso. As you know, it's about the same price as the silver.